A lot of you wanted to know what really happened beyond just the score. And, well, let me tell you, it got pretty interesting. That 26-18 final score might make you think it was a defensive slugfest.
And for a while, it really was.
Right.
Yeah, that first half was like a chess match.
Oh, absolutely.
Both defenses came out strong. I mean, they were completely shutting down the other team's offense, just like neither team could catch a break.
Yeah. 6 field goals in a row, 3 from each side.
Yeah.
That says something about those defenses.
Sure.
But, man, the Giants, they racked up a ton of penalties.
Yeah, they did.
11 throughout the whole game. It just killed any momentum they tried to build.
Yeah, penalties can be real backbreakers, you know?
Yeah.
You have to wonder how differently things might have gone if the Giants had played a cleaner game. But even with all that, you know, the game really changed in the third quarter, thanks to one particular Steeler.
Okay, I'm all ears. You know I love a good turning point.
This is where it gets wild. Calvin Austin III.
Okay.
Remember that name. Coach Tomlin, he apparently had a feeling about Austin before the game, like almost a sixth sense or something. He pulls Austin aside before a punt return and tells him, "This is your time." And wouldn't you know,
Wow.
Austin takes that punt 73 yards for a touchdown. It just completely flipped the script. And get this. Austin had actually texted some friends over the weekend saying he felt like a big play was coming.
No way.
Talk about calling your shot.
That's insane. It's like he willed it into existence. So that punt return was huge, but he didn't stop there, right?
Oh, no, this was Austin's night. In the fourth quarter, he snags a 29-yard pass from Russell Wilson for his second touchdown.
Wow.
The guy was electric. And that catch really showed off his versatility. He's not just a speedster. He can make plays all over the field.
Right.
And speaking of Wilson, you know, that pass,
Yeah.
that was one of his classic, moon balls. We haven't seen a ton of those since he joined the Steelers.
I love those throws. It seems like they hang in the air forever, giving the receiver time to adjust.
Yeah.
When they connect, it's just beautiful to watch.
It is.
So did this game feel like a vintage Russell Wilson performance? Was he like back to his old self?
It definitely felt like a step in the right direction, I'd say. He looked more comfortable in the pocket,
Right.
And he spread the ball around to 8 different receivers.
Right.
It's a good sign that the offense is starting to gel, which should have the rest of the AFC North sweating a bit.
Yeah, makes sense. A healthy and confident Russell Wilson. Scary thought for any opponent. But let's not forget about the Giants, right?
Right.
They didn't just lie down after Austin's touchdown.
Yes. Absolutely not. Rookie running back Tyrone Tracy Jr., he had an explosive run of his own,
Yeah.
a 45-yard touchdown that brought the Giants back within reach. They tried to go for a 2-point conversion to tie it up,
Oh, wow.
but it failed. Big turning point.
Yeah, those high-stakes decisions.
Yeah.
They can really make or break a game. So how did the Steelers ultimately seal the win?
Their defense came up huge. They shut down the Giants in those final drives. Rookie cornerback Beanie Bishop Jr. had a clutch interception.
Wow.
And, of course, we can't forget about T.J. Watt, who had a crucial strip sack of Daniel Jones to force a turnover at a key moment.
Watt's a beast. Always seems to be in the right place at the right time to make a game-changing play. So let's take a quick look at some of those individual performances that stood out. Obviously, we have to start with Calvin Austin III. 3 receptions, 54 receiving yards, and those 2 incredible touchdowns. 1 receiving, 1 punt return. What a night.
He was the spark the Steelers needed. You could feel the entire energy of the stadium shift after that punt return. Austin single-handedly woke that offense up.
He definitely stole the show.
Yeah.
And we've got to give props to Russell Wilson as well. 20 completions out of 28 attempts, 278 passing yards, and a touchdown, a solid performance overall.
Definitely a step in the right direction for him.
And how about Najee Harris? 114 rushing yards. He was grinding it out all night. And we have to acknowledge Tyrone Tracy Jr. for his performance, even though the Giants lost. 145 rushing yards and that impressive touchdown run. That kid's got talent.
Absolutely. There were some impressive individual performances on both sides, even though the final score wasn't a blowout.
So, stepping back a bit, what does this win actually mean for both teams in the bigger picture?
Well, for the Steelers, it's a statement win. They've now won 3 in a row and are sitting alone at the top of the AFC North.
Right.
They're going into their bye week with a ton of momentum.
Yeah.
For the Giants, it's another tough loss. They're 2-6 now, and consistency has been their Achilles heel, They've shown flashes of potential, but just can't seem to put it all together.
Yeah, it's a tough spot to be in. But the big takeaway from this game is definitely the emergence of Calvin Austin III as a difference maker for the Steelers. His performance was electrifying. Coach Tomlin predicting his breakout that incredible punt return touchdown, and then the receiving touchdown on top of it, it all points to a potential star in the making.
No question about it. He was the X factor in a game that initially seemed destined to be a low-scoring defensive battle.
You know, it's almost like Coach Tomlin knew Austin was about to explode. To have pulled him aside before that punt return and told him, this is your time, it's almost spooky. And for Austin to have that feeling himself, texting friends that a big play was coming, that's just wild.
It really is. It makes you wonder, what's next for this young receiver? Can he keep this momentum going after the bye week?
Yeah.
How will his performance change his role in the offense moving forward?
Those are the million-dollar questions, right?
Yeah.
And they are exactly what we're going to unpack next.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how his role develops. He's clearly got the talent, but now it's about consistency, you know, finding his place within the offensive scheme.
Right. And this game really showed us that he's so much more than just a speedster returning kicks.
Yeah.
Like, he's a legitimate receiving threat.
Oh, absolutely.
And that adds a whole new layer to the Steelers' offense.
Exactly. And, you know, when you think about it, a player like Austin thriving, it actually benefits the entire Steelers offense.
Okay, break that down for me. I'm intrigued.
Well, think about it this way. Defenses have been laser focused on shutting down, you know, George Pickens all season.
Right.
But now, with Austin proving that he can be a game changer, defenses can't just key in on one guy anymore.
Yeah.
They have to account for both threats.
Right.
And that opens up opportunities for everyone else, the other receivers, the tight ends, even Najee Harris in the running game.
So it's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
Austin's success creates space and opportunities for everyone else.
Precisely. And that's what makes this win so much bigger than just beating the Giants.
Right.
It's about the Steelers, you know, unlocking a potential offensive weapon in Austin and figuring out how to leverage that moving forward.
You know, speaking of unlocking potential, we have to talk about that moon ball throw from Wilson. We know he loves those throws, but it felt particularly significant in this game. What do you think?
I think you're picking up on something really important here. That play wasn't just about the touchdown. It was a statement.
A statement. Okay. I'm all ears.
It was a statement that Russell Wilson is sick.
Okay.
Remember, he was out for 6 weeks with that calf injury.
Right.
He's still working his way back, shaking off the rust. But that throw, that connection with Austin, it showed a level of confidence and swagger that we haven't seen from him yet this season.
So you're saying that throw was about more than just the points on the scoreboard.
Yeah.
It was a glimpse into Wilson's mindset, like his belief in himself and his receivers.
Exactly. And that, to me, is what makes this game a potential turning point for the Steelers. They're not just winning games. They're starting to find their identity on offense with Wilson back in the driver's seat. Now, add in this electric playmaker in Austin, and it's a recipe for a very dangerous team.
Right.
Especially with their defense already playing at such a high level.
Man, you've got me hyped. A confident Russell Wilson, a dynamic Calvin Austin III, a stifling defense. The Steelers are looking like a real contender.
They absolutely are. And what makes them even more dangerous is that they're heading into their bye week.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect time to rest up, you know? Fine-tune their game plan and come back even stronger.
Bye weeks can be huge for teams that are starting to find their groove, right? It's a chance to, you know, address any weaknesses, work on new plays, and come back recharged and refocused.
For sure. And don't forget, this is still a relatively young Steelers team.
Right.
They're learning and growing every week.
Oh, yeah.
The more experience they gain, the more dangerous they become.
You're right. This team is just scratching the surface of its potential. But as much as I'm loving the Steelers story right now, let's not count the Giants out entirely just yet.
It's true. It's way too early to write anyone off in this league.
Especially with a player like Tyrone Tracy Jr. That 45-yard touchdown run was something else. The kid's got serious wheels.
Absolutely. Tracy is a bright spot for the Giants. He's got the speed and vision to be a difference maker.
But they just couldn't get over the hump in this game. What do you think were some of the key factors that led to their loss, besides all those penalties we talked about?
I think their inability to finish drives was a major issue. They moved the ball at times, but they stalled out in the red zone too often. And then, of course, the turnovers were costly, especially that late interception that sealed their fate.
Yeah, those are the moments that can really sting, right? You need a play, and you just can't make it happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And against a team like the Steelers, who are opportunistic and capitalize on mistakes,
Right.
those missed opportunities can be fatal.
So for the Giants, it's back to the drawing board. They have to figure out how to play a cleaner game, eliminate those costly mistakes, and find a way to close out these close games.
You nailed it. They've got the talent, but they need to put it all together if they want to turn their season around.
All right, we spent a lot of time talking about the Steelers' offense and their breakout stars, but we can't forget about their defense, which has been a force all season long.
Yeah.
What impressed you about their defensive performance in this game?
Well, I think their ability to adapt to the Giants' offensive scheme was impressive.
Okay.
You know, the Giants came out trying to establish the run with Tracy, and the Steelers did a great job of containing him early on. Then, when the Giants tried to open up the passing game, the Steelers' secondary stepped up and made some big plays, including that game-sealing interception.
It seems like they always have an answer no matter what the opponent throws at them. They're so well prepared.
Yeah, that's what you get from a well-coached, disciplined defense. They may not be flashy, but they're fundamentally sound in play with incredible intensity.
And with TJ Watt leading the charge, they always have the potential to create chaos in the backfield.
Oh, yeah.
He's a game wrecker.
No doubt about it. Watt is a constant disruption. You know, he's always putting pressure on the quarterback, forcing turnovers, and making life miserable for opposing offenses.
So even though the Giants put up some decent numbers offensively, it was the Steelers' defense that shut them down when it mattered most.
That's the key takeaway here. The Steelers' defense is the real deal, and it's a major reason why they're sitting atop the AFC North.
So we've got a high-powered offense that's starting to click, a stifling defense led by one of the best players in the league, and a team that's gaining confidence with every win.
It's a dangerous combination, and it should have the rest of the NFL on high alert.
All right, before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to circle back to something we talked about earlier, those vintage moonball throws from Russell Wilson. What makes those throws so special, and why are they such a signature move for him?
You know, what's fascinating about the moonball is that it's a high-risk, high-reward play.
Yeah.
It requires a ton of trust between the quarterback and the receiver.
I can see that. Tell me more.
Think about it. You're essentially throwing the ball up for grabs, giving the defender a chance to make a play on it. But if the receiver can track the ball, you know, outjump the defender and make the catch, it's one of the most spectacular plays in football.
It's like a jump ball in basketball.
Yeah.
Where you're just giving your guy a chance to, go up and get it.
Exactly. And Wilson has mastered this type of throw throughout his career. He has this uncanny ability to, put the perfect amount of touch on the ball, allowing his receivers to make a play on it.
And it seems like he's starting to build that same trust and connection with his receivers in Pittsburgh.
That's the key. He's building chemistry with guys like, Austin, Pickens, and Jefferson. And the more they play together,
Right.
the more dangerous that passing game becomes.
So for Steelers fans, seeing Wilson confidently throw those moon balls, it's a really encouraging sign.
It's a sign that the offense is finding its rhythm, and that's bad news for the rest of the league.
All right, I think we've covered just about everything there is to cover on this game. We've analyzed the key moments, we've broken down the performances, and explored the implications for both teams. But before we move on to our next deep dive, I have one last question for you. We've talked a lot about Calvin Austin III's breakout game, but what about the Steelers' other young receiver, George Pickens? He had a relatively quiet night, only catching a couple of passes. Do you think this is a sign of things to come, or was it just an off night for him?
That's a great question, and one that deserves further exploration. Remember, Pickens has been the focal point of the Steelers' passing game for most of the season.
Right.
Now, with Austin emerging as a threat, it'll be interesting to see how opposing defenses adjust and how that impacts Pickens' role moving forward.
So is this a case of Austin's rise coming at the expense of Pickens' production?
Not necessarily. It could actually have the opposite effect.
Okay, I'm all ears. Explain that one to me.
Well, as we talked about earlier, Austin's emergence forces defenses to spread their attention.
Right.
It opens up opportunities for other receivers, and that includes Pickens. If defenses are too focused on Austin, that could create favorable matchups for Pickens to exploit.
So it's not a zero-sum game.
Right.
One player's success doesn't have to come at the expense of another player.
Exactly. It's about finding the right balance and the right chemistry within the offense.
So the real question is, can the Steelers figure out how to use both Austin's explosiveness and Pickens' playmaking ability to create a truly dynamic passing attack?
That's the challenge, and it's one that I think Coach Tomlin and the Steelers' offensive staff are excited to tackle.
It's going to be fascinating to watch how this all plays out in the coming weeks.
Yeah.
It really is. It'll be interesting to see how they, balance those two. But before we get too carried away with the Steelers and their, offensive future, let's bring it back to the Giants for a sec. What are some key takeaways for them after this loss? What adjustments do they need to make to turn things around.
Well, for the Giants, I think the biggest takeaway might be that they're not as far off as their record suggests.
Yeah.
They have talent on both sides of the ball,
Right.
and they've shown they can make big plays.
Like Tracy's touchdown run.
Exactly.
That was a flash of brilliance.
It was, but, their Achilles heel has been consistency.
Yeah.
They need to clean up the penalties, the turnovers, and the mental errors that have plagued them all season.
Yeah, it's those self-inflicted wounds
Absolutely.
that are really holding them back.
If they can eliminate those mistakes, they have the potential to be a competitive team in this league.
So for the Giants, it's about finding that consistency, playing a cleaner game, and, learning how to win those close games.
Yeah.
They need to develop that killer instinct.
Couldn't have said it better myself. They have to believe they can win these close games. It's a mental hurdle they need to overcome.
All right, so I think we've officially squeezed every drop of insight we can out of this Monday Night Football matchup. We've explored the Steelers' offensive surge, the Giants' search for consistency, and the emergence of Calvin Austin III as a game changer.
And hopefully we've given you, dear listener, a deeper understanding of not just what happened on Monday night, but what it all means for these two teams moving forward.
Yeah, I think you've provided some incredible context. This was definitely more than just a game. It was a potential turning point, I think, for both of these franchises.
And that's what makes the NFL so captivating, Every game has the potential to shift the narrative, change the trajectory of a team's season.
So as we head into the second half of the season, the big questions remain. Which teams will step up? Which players will exceed expectations? And, who will ultimately be holding that Lombardi trophy at the end of it all?
Only time will tell. But it's going to be a thrilling ride.
It always is. And that's what keeps us coming back for more week after week.
And we can't wait to keep exploring all the twists and turns of this wild NFL season with you.
Thanks for joining us on this